Welcome to Wealth Hustle 247 podcast, your trusted guide to financial literacy, business innovation, and entrepreneurial success. Learn how to grow your wealth, make informed decisions, and turn your ideas into profitable ventures.
Welcome to today's episode. We're discussing 7 things you need to learn for your financial freedom. Gaining control over your finances is essential for achieving the life you desire. Tune in as we explore these key lessons that can set you on the path to true financial independence.
All right, so are you ready to dive into the world of Robert Kiyosaki and his rich dad, poor dad philosophy?
Let's do it. I'm ready to unpack his key ideas and see what we can learn.
Perfect. Kiyosaki doesn't mess around. He comes out swinging and says most people are clueless about financial statements.
Yeah, he's definitely not afraid to challenge conventional thinking.
He even compares those statements to a report card. Says it's what bankers actually look at.
That's a really interesting way to put it. It's like he's saying financial literacy is just as important as understanding your grades in school.
Right, like we're all just walking into this financial world without even knowing the rules of the game. And Kiyosaki, he says this is because of our traditional education system. We're taught to be employees, or E's, as he calls them.
Instead of B's, business owners, or I's, investors. He's really pushing for that mindset shift.
Working for money versus owning things that generate money.
Exactly. That's a core part of his rich dad philosophy.
And, he uses his own life to kind of prove this point, right? He talks about choosing real estate over being an airline pilot.
Oh, yeah. He wasn't content just working for an airline. He wanted to own the whole thing.
He wanted to be the airline tycoon.
Exactly. And it highlights how he values acquiring assets over just chasing income, which isn't to say that income doesn't matter.
Right, of course not.
But it should be a result of your assets, not the main focus.
Okay, so how does that work in the real world? Can you give me an example?
Sure. Think of it like this. You own a rental property, and you've got a tenant who pays you rent every month. That rental income. That's cash flow that your asset is generating. Kiyosaki would argue that's way more stable than just a regular paycheck.
It's about having something that works for you, even when you're not working.
Exactly. And to really hammer home this whole asset thing, Kiyosaki, he uses a really interesting example. He talks about McDonald's.
Okay,
He
McDonald's.
says they're not just selling burgers, they're in the real estate business.
So it's about the bigger picture, the assets that actually make the business work.
Exactly. They own prime locations, the value goes up, then they get income from rent and appreciation. That's classic Kiyosaki.
So we've got this big focus on assets, and then Kiyosaki just drops this bombshell. He calls gold and silver God's money.
He's not subtle, is he?
He even brings out these gold and silver bars in the video to show you.
I've seen it. It's pretty great. It really shows you how little trust he has in regular money, and the institutions that control it. He's all about precious metals as a safety net if the economy goes haywire.
And let's be honest, that's speaking to a lot of people right now with everything going on.
For sure.
But wait, there's more. Because then Kiyosaki goes on to say that millennials, they're taught to avoid risk because they're stuck memorizing answers in school. And because of that, they're afraid to actually take action in the real world where you're bound to make mistakes.
Interesting. He's saying that our traditional education system, it might not be preparing people for the risks that come with starting your own business.
Especially the financial risks.
Absolutely. And that's really where his critique of the education system starts to gain traction. He thinks schools are all about rote learning, not practical financial knowledge.
So instead of learning how to manage money, how to invest, we're just memorizing stuff we'll never use.
That's what he's saying. And it gets worse because on top of that, you've got this crazy tax system, right?
Oh, yeah. He talks about taxes a lot in this video. He even says that rich people pay less in taxes. So how does that even work?
Well, he uses taxes to kind of show you how the system is kind of rigged. He divides income into these categories. He calls them income quadrants.
Income quadrants. Okay, I got to ask, what are those and why are they so important to Kiyosaki?
So he's got these 4 quadrants: E for employees, S for self-employed or small business owners, B for big business owners, and I for investors. And he says each quadrant has its own advantages and disadvantages when it comes to taxes.
So like if you're an employee, you're stuck paying more than someone who owns a giant company.
That's what he's suggesting. People in those B and I quadrants, they have more ways to legally reduce their taxes. Deductions, write-offs, all sorts of things that employees or small business owners can't really use.
Wow. Is he saying the system is designed to benefit the wealthy and keep everyone else down?
Well, he definitely thinks the rules are different depending on which quadrant you're in. And this whole thing about different tax burdens, he sees it as a form of financial illiteracy, something that keeps people stuck in that cycle of working for money.
So how do we break free?
He says you got to become financially literate, shift your mindset, stop thinking like an employee and start thinking like an investor or an entrepreneur.
And this is where he brings in that cash flow board game of his, right? He talks about how he created the game because he was so frustrated with how financial education was being taught.
Exactly. The game is his answer to that problem. He wants to teach people about finances, investing, building assets, but make it fun.
Yeah, like learning by doing instead of just reading about it.
Right. The game lets you try out different things, see how the market works. You even get to make mistakes without any real consequences.
And it always comes back to his main message. Get out of the E quadrant and get into the B or I quadrant.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He even says playing the stock market is like gambling, but his game teaches you real skills to build wealth through owning a business or real estate.
That's a bold statement.
Yeah.
But I get it. It's about owning assets that generate cash, right?
Exactly. Remember that example about Ray Kroc and McDonald's? He wasn't satisfied with just burgers. He saw the value of the real estate. He used those McDonald's profits to buy up more property, and that made him even wealthier.
So it's not enough to just work hard. You have to work smart.
Exactly. Find ways to make your assets work for you so you can build a real sustainable income. And Kiyosaki, he thinks a lot of people miss this because they're not financially literate. He wants us to fundamentally change how we view money.
So it's like he's saying the whole system needs to change. And he really goes after politicians, too.
Yeah, he does.
He says most of them don't understand finance any better than the average person.
He's not afraid to ruffle some feathers. He's really skeptical of the government, especially now.
Yeah, with everything that's going on, it makes you wonder. But that all ties back into his thing about personal responsibility, right?
Absolutely. He wants you to take charge. Don't wait for someone to teach you this stuff. Figure it out yourself.
Learn the rules and then, play to win. It's a powerful message. Even if you don't agree with everything he says, it makes you stop and think.
Yeah, it definitely challenges you to re-examine your own relationship with money.
So after going this deep into Kiyosaki's world, what are your big takeaways? What do you want our listeners to remember?
I think the biggest thing is to be proactive. Don't wait for someone to teach you this stuff. Go out and find the information yourself.
Become financially fluent.
Exactly. Kiyosaki wants to empower people. He wants you to question everything. Don't just accept the way things are.
Take control. I like it. Well, I think that's a great place to wrap things up. This deep dive was giving us a lot to consider. And remember, it's up to each of us to take the next step. Are you ready to start thinking like the rich dad?
That's it for today's episode of Wealth Hustle 247. Be sure to follow, like, comment, and share with others. Keep pushing toward your goals, and we'll see you in the next episode.